that creates a little more uncertainty that you should be prepared for. And hopefully, continue to have the soft landing, but it may not happen. We just don't know.
I was just reflecting on what you just said about AI, and this, 2 years ago, my preparation for this interview would have taken 3 or 4 days, back and forth with the communication department. It took probably 10 minutes to come up with a list of questions and quotes, and it's just how quickly life.
I was going to tell you did a great job, but now I know it was Gemini.
Well, I helped Gemini. I polished Gemini a little bit, but it was certainly. So let's tackle something that's been a little bit interesting for a couple of years. So you've been famously skeptical about Bitcoin. But I think you've come off of that a little bit over the last 6 months or 12 months. And I know JP Morgan uses a lot of blockchain, token, and a lot of innovation into your business and your approach. How do you balance the risk of investing in technologies that are going to drive innovation and future growth? And what are your thoughts on stablecoin and Bitcoin? That's a loaded
so
question.
this is a great way to deal with an issue or something like that. Whenever we meet as a business unit, so it could be a small business unit like consumer branches or a big one like global investment banking, on the table and on the agenda is what are you doing in tech, AI, et cetera. That is always on the agenda. And I do it differently than other people. I don't say what's in your budget. I always say, are you doing everything you need to do to win in the future, period. And I don't care what the budget says. I don't care whether, and you may walk in and say, you know what, I was just over somewhere, I really need to do X. My view is, you better be doing X. So to me, the budget is a roadmap. It is not your boss. And so I make people, we're going to do that. Stablecoin was one where I don't know how it's going to play out. But that also answers my question is, what do we do about it? We're involved. We're building a stablecoin. We may build it with other banks. We have a JP Morgan deposit coin already, which I can pay you interest on. We use the blockchain. Any of these tools that you want to use for smart contracts and stuff like that, we are simply going to do. I don't know how it's going to sort out. But I'd rather be plain, which keeps us smart, than acting like I know the answer to it. And so, and we do that with all technology. Whether, sometimes regardless of what I think about it, I want you to be dabbling in it. Because you're being smart, and it is much more important than saying Jamie does or doesn't like it and something like that. So, and we do that with almost all frontier type of technologies.
I'm going to shift on you a little bit. So there's been a historic relocation of both people and capital to Florida and to South Florida, primarily from the west coast of the country, the Northeast, Illinois, DC, you name it. And what are your thoughts on that? Is that going to continue? And for the residents of Wall Street South, how should we think about the future relative to that relocation that's taking place?
Yeah, my bottom line is I think that everyone has to compete. And when I grew up in New York City, I was probably one of those New York City kids that thought that it's New York City, New Jersey, and the rest of the world, something like that. And you know why New Yorkers are so depressed?
Why?
Because the light at the end of the tunnel is New Jersey. But now, and when I first started traveling the world, a lot of cities weren't great places, including like London, or Singapore, or Hong Kong, or Nashville, or now they're great. I mean, all these cities, they've got opera and food and infrastructure and terrific universities, and it's a competitive world. It's competitive between countries, it's competitive between cities, it's competitive between states, and you're mentioning a bunch of these states that are driving business out, and it will backfire. And so people vote with their feet, and some people act like they vote with their feet because they're selfish. They vote with their feet because they see a better life for them and their family. I'm not mad at someone if they leave JP Morgan because they say they got a better opportunity. I'm like, I understand. It's your life. I want you to be happy. It's not about you making me happy. And so there's a competitive element to all these things. And like even COVID taught you that you can work, a lot of people can work in different cities and be quite productive. And we have big technology centers around the world, including Buenos Aires, because they've got a great university on coding and engineering in Argentina. And so Miami and Florida compete. They compete with taxes, they compete with universities, we have more employees in Texas today than we have in New York. If you go to Texas, you want to build something, you build it. The taxes per personal and individual lower. They've got their universities make sure they're graduating the students you want. And if you need to change a bus route because you have 5,000 employees somewhere, they just change the route. You know, you go to other cities, you'll be negotiating for 20 years. You know, and I think they're making a mistake. And a lot of those cities do things in the name of good, which create bad. All of these bad policies, in my view, usually hurt the lower paid people more. That's what happens. And they also don't acknowledge their problems. So I think like in inner cities, I mean, we do a lot of work in inner cities in the United States, in the schools. But the first thing is, raise your hand and say we aren't graduating kids with the skills they need to have a well-paying job. So I give you skills, 16 weeks, advanced manufacturing, or taking care of a car, taking care of a Cessna, coding, compliance, something like that, $60,000 a year job at 17 with full medical. We're not doing it. We're just simply not doing it. And then, you know, and I'm not going to blame any particular group here, but if you don't stand forward and say, we have a problem, this isn't working, you won't fix it. So there's a lot to do. And, you know, like going back to Miami, Florida's done a great job. You know, and if you look at what's happening, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia are growing. You know, California, Texas has just started a new stock exchange. You know, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's going to probably be bad for ISS and Glass Lewis, and I think that's great. I think those institutions are terrible and should be crushed. You know, and so the domicile of corporations, the litigation system we have to deal with. We better start fixing these things, because if we don't, folks, in 30 years we're going the way of Europe. And you know, and we have to open our eyes and make sure we're quite clear. And if we do it right, it'll help all of our citizens, all of them, not just, you know, the people who you think are well off.
Jamie, you have a very famous quote that says, if you're not confused, you don't know what's going on. I love that.
Yeah.
So that confuses me. What are you confused about most right this second?
Yeah, I'm always trying to, sometimes, you know, people think these CEOs are totally on top of stuff. Just so you don't know, half the time I feel like I'm riding a Bronco and hanging on for dear life. You know, and all the things you talk about, you know, what does this mean and what does that mean? Well, I worry about all those things, and they do get quite confusing. But I heard Eric said, we iterate over and over. We don't try to get the answer in the first time. We meet, we'll do it again, we'll do it again, we'll do it again. And sometimes, so I tell people, in most even very complex issues, the answer is waiting to be found. It's waiting to be found. You've got the right people working it over and over, looking at it from multiple different angles, or at least by the time you make that decision, you've minimized the chance of making a terrible mistake.
So I have 20-year-old kids, they're first year freshmen in college. And one of the things that my wife and I struggle with is, what advice do we give young folks today about their professional careers, given the fact that there's so much volatility in such a quickly changing landscape? The advice that I received from my parents is completely different than the advice that we should be providing kids today. What would you say?
I learn, first of all, the world is faster and it's more complex. It doesn't change my advice that much, but learn. It's a lifelong thing. You learn by already talking about people and reading, always. And it's always changing. Whatever profession you're in, it's changing again. You should be reading, thinking, talking, traveling, etc. Develop your EQ. You know, your EQ ultimately is probably more important for your happiness. It's probably more important for management skills. You know, we're just part of a team. I love Ted Lasso. You know, the Ted Lasso is, and Eric's part of it. The team, the coach is trying to get both the individuals and the team to function properly, get the best out of everybody. Sometimes it dictates discipline. Teach the kids discipline. You know, I'm quite disciplined. I do my homework, I do my exercise, I do my reading, I do all my pre-reads. I'm always focused in a meeting. But develop your EQ. And your EQ is empathy, communication, follow-up. Are you earning people's trust and respect? You know, there are a lot of people who aren't trusted and respected because they're BSers, and everyone else knows. You know, and so they have to be flexible all the time. You know, that will bring a lot of happiness. I think it's very important that they take care of their mind, body, spirit, soul, friends, family, and health. I mean, that's just got to be part of what you do. And you know, be curious, develop confidence, but don't be so overconfident, the arrogant. And another one is really important. Like, one of the great piece of advice I remember a guy telling a whole bunch of people was, use the brains you have, and this I do think is really important, to figure out the truth, not to justify what you already think. And I see so many people, they are really smart, but that smartness gets rigid, and they think they're so smart that nothing you say is going to change what they think or how they think, and also don't allow yourself to be weaponized. It's almost the same thing. People will jazz you up your whole life, so that if you do all that, you have a great life. I love that poem, If. If you keep your head around about yours when all those around you losing, if you can walk with kings and talk to the knaves, if you can, it's kind of that.
Jamie, when I was getting ready to spend some time with you up on stage, I just assumed you had written a book. And I said, I got to go find this book. I don't think you've written a book. So with that in mind, what do you want your legacy to be when you're done with JP Morgan? What is it you're trying to, what would you want people to say about you when it's all said and done?
So when I first took over Bank One, a former CEO of a company came to see me and said, you've got to leave a mark. You've got to leave a legacy. And his idea was that we take Bank One international. And I looked at him and said, we're doing a shitty job in the United States. I mean, what right do I have to go do it overseas? I got to fix what we got before I do that. I also told him, when I go international, it'll be big. It won't be, and I called him up after we did the merger with JP Morgan, and I said, that's what I meant. I'm not doing this little rinky-dink stuff overseas. But I'm always afraid when a CEO, particularly of a bigger company, wants to leave a legacy, I always say, sell the stock. It's not about my legacy. I just want to leave behind a very healthy, vibrant company, and hopefully people say, that son of a bitch made the world a better place. That's it. Okay.
All right, so just two quick comments, and we're going to bring this to a close. First of all, I was in New York last week, and I have to say this. If you guys haven't, when you go to New York, you got to go check this out. The building that JP Morgan just built at 270 Park,
yeah,
it is phenomenal. It is really just an icon. I understand why it took a little bit of time, because things like that take time. And the American flag in the lobby, it is just world-class. Congratulations. That is, there's no way people don't want to go back to work in their office in that building.
And you probably didn't see it. The top 300 feet, and we've put it up there, an American flag, which you can see for miles of the building, totally lit up, and we can put anything up there, not just the American flag.
Jamie, we're all done for this morning, but I want to take a second and say thank you. Thank you on behalf of the city of Miami. Thank you on behalf of the American Business Forum. Thank you on behalf of just the country for the leadership you provide, the candor and the transparency in which you communicate your messages that have been so unbelievably impactful to this country, to our industry, and to society. So thank you so much for everything you did.
George, thank you very much. Did a great job. Folks, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Aquí ha llegado el discurso, esta entrevista a Jamie Dimon, el CEO de JP Morgan, advirtiendo sobre la inteligencia artificial, también sobre la parte peligrosa que esto tiene, pero dice, pues que va a cambiar absolutamente todo. Ha hablado sobre los aranceles de Donald Trump, esta guerra comercial y también, pues cómo está afectando a su empresa. Decía que es un patriota y que está orgulloso de ello. Muy pendientes de este discurso de Jamie Dimon, vamos a escuchar en este evento a Rafa Nadal, a Javier Milei, todo el día pendientes de este evento, este American Business Forum, pero también todo el día pendientes de los mercados. Les contábamos las caídas en el Nasdaq, que ojo porque empiezan a coger un cariz bastante más serio. Vamos a mirar sobre todo al Nasdaq. Viene con fuertes caídas en torno a los 2 puntos porcentuales. Ahora mismo se dejan 1,89% hasta los 25.135 puntos. También sigue profundizando sus caídas el S&P 500, se deja un 1,16% hasta los 6.717 enteros, mientras que el Dow Jones también viene con caídas prolongadas, caídas fuertes del 1,07% hasta los 46.806 puntos. Vamos a ver cuáles son las que más están cayendo en estos momentos. Hay fuertes caídas en las tecnológicas, por ejemplo en Tesla, pero tenemos por ejemplo Advanced Micro Device, se deja un 7%, MicroStrategy 6,41%, Intel. Vamos a mirar a las más conocidas. Intel se deja un 3,65%, Tesla 4,9%, 81% abajo. Las principales tecnológicas, Nvidia se deja prácticamente un 3%. Las principales tecnológicas, algunas de ellas relacionadas también con la inteligencia artificial, pegándose un nuevo costalazo en el día de hoy, en torno al 3 al 4%. El foco está puesto sobre todo en el Nasdaq, que, como decimos, a punto de llegar al 2% de caída. Todo esto en un día en el que les decíamos, estamos a punto de escuchar a Donald Trump, vamos a escuchar ya al presidente de Estados Unidos, nuevo anuncio importante sobre medicamentos.
Two world's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, have agreed to offer their most popular GLP-1 weight loss drug, I call it the fat drug, remember? At drastic discounts, really effective drugs. And so far I've never heard anything bad about them. I only hear good about them. But is there anything bad about them, Bobby? I haven't heard anything bad. Someday maybe it'll come out, which will notify you immediately. But so far I haven't heard that, including the drugs known as Zepbound and Wegovy, often called Ozempic. This is a triumph for American patients that will save lives and improve the health of millions and millions of Americans. Amazing thing. They are amazing. I want to thank Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks, a friend of mine. We've worked long and hard. He and I got this whole thing started in a way. And Novo Nordisk CEO Mike Dustar for joining us today. Great, talented people. They make a lot of money. I looked at the money, but they're entitled to the money because the companies are doing very well. Along with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary Howard Lutnick. Do you take any of this stuff, Howard?
Not yet.
Okay. So, CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz, he doesn't take it. Food and Drug Administrator Commissioner Marty McCary, and Director of Medicare Chris Plum. And we have Steve here, Head of Public Relations for the White House. He's taking it. The United States is just 4% of the world's population and consumes only 13% of all prescription drugs, yet pharmaceutical companies make 75% of their profits from the American customer. I would say that's not so good, right? It's not exactly good. To address this chronic unfairness, I signed an executive order earlier this year instructing my administration to do everything in our power to implement most favored nations drug pricing, something that has been helped greatly by tariffs, because when nations refuse to do it, we should have put this in the case yesterday. I just say, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to charge you a like amount of tariffs. And they immediately say, we'll do it, which means that Americans should pay no more than the lowest price offered anywhere in the world. So that you've heard for years the disparity where you'll pay $150 for a pill in New York and you'll pay $10 for a pill in London. Now you're going to pay $20 both, because the world is a little bit bigger than the U.S., so it goes up that way, but you'll pay $20 and $20. A tremendous advantage to our country after years of being abused by the world system. Already Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and EMD, Serrano, have agreed to drastically lower their prices for American patients. And today, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are joining the phenomenal list of the most exciting announcements. I mean, nobody's ever had announcements like, and this has to do with other pharmaceutical products also. But we're covering this today because it's such a big seller. I guess it's the #1 selling thing there is today. These are two companies that are behind the groundbreaking weight loss drugs that have helped millions of Americans struggling with obesity live better, longer lives, everything else. These are the two companies that really broke ground. Until now, neither of these two popular drugs have been covered by Medicare for weight loss, and they've only rarely been covered by Medicaid. They've often cost consumers more than $1,000 per month, and some a lot more than that. Americans have been spending as much as 520% more for Zepbound and 1,400% more for Wegovy than patients in Europe. Think of that. 1,400% more than a patient in Europe for the exact same box. And that ends starting today. The other countries are not happy with us. I don't think they like me too much, Bobby, but that's okay. Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are committing to offer Zepbound and Wegovy at most favored nations rates for American patients. This will slash the cost of Wegovy from $1,350 a month to ultimately $250 a month. $1,350 to $250. Did I do a good job? They don't write about it. You know, they like to not write these things. And reduce, you think Biden could have done this? I don't think so. And reduce the monthly cost of Zepbound from $1,080 to $346. In addition, they're both committing that future GLP-1 weight loss drugs taken orally, which are currently under development, will be sold at no more than $149 per month. It's a massive. Think of that. You go from $1,300 to $149 a month. We anticipate these new versions will be coming out in a very short period of time. All of these drugs will be available directly to the consumer at trumprx.gov. Trump, they want to use my name. Trump, it better be good. trumprx.gov. And I think it's turning out to be pretty amazing, right, us? Just as significantly, Medicare and Medicaid will finally cover the cost of these weight loss drugs for millions of patients suffering from obesity. Co-pays for Medicare patients will be as low as $50. This is tremendous savings. I mean, now you're talking about from $1,350 to $50. This is tremendous news for the American seniors. And you all remember when I had 1/8 of 1% for the year. I got it 1/8 of, and I was so thrilled. But now we're cutting it 1,000%, 1,200%. Nobody's ever said anything like this. Nobody else could have done it, but I say that modestly. In addition, you think it was easy dealing with these people? It wasn't.
Atentos a este anuncio por parte de Donald Trump, el presidente de Estados Unidos, que anuncia que Eli Lilly y Novo Nordisk han conseguido una pausa de 3 años en los aranceles en Estados Unidos. Sus acciones están subiendo en torno al 2,2%, por ejemplo, en el caso de Eli Lilly, mientras que Trump está diciendo que los americanos deberían pagar los precios más bajos en el mundo por los medicamentos. Dice además sobre estos medicamentos para bajar de peso que espera nuevas versiones pronto. Seguimos escuchando a Trump hablando sobre medicamentos y sobre el desastre del Medicaid de Obama.
Meaning that you will pay the lowest price anywhere in the world. That's what you're going to pay. Whereas before they paid low prices and we paid, you know, thousands of percentile ahead more. And to sell these drugs to all consumers at deeply discounted prices via trumprx.com. When is trumprx.com opening?
The site is open. It will launch in terms of giving people prices before the end of the year.
Okay, got to make sure it's successful. It's got my name on it. I don't want to be like so many others. I don't want to be like the train they're building in California. Okay, which has about 15,000% cost overrun. Or the beautiful Obama building that he's building in Chicago for the museum, which is now shuttered up and dead. They got it up, and they couldn't finish. It's about, would you say, 5 years behind schedule? And about 2,000% over budget. Then he tells us how to run Medicaid. Many of the most widely used drugs will be available for 60% off, or even more than that. In addition, all new medications introduced by Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk to the American market will be sold at the heavily reduced most favored nations price. Most favored nations price, that's the best. Because they have been thousands of percent lower than what we were selling in many cases. Furthermore, Eli Lilly is investing $27 billion. That's all? And Novo Nordisk will invest $10 billion. That's all? That's peanuts. In the United States to reshore do a big domestic manufacturing job in the facilities. They're going to spend, so Eli Lilly spent $27 billion. Novo is spending $10 billion in the United States. So they're building new plant and equipment. That's part of what will be $20 or $21 trillion this year. There's never been anything like it. I know nobody talks about it, but there's never been anything like, I would say, you would say, that there's never been anything like this ever, whether it's China or Europe, or you could take all of Europe, there's never been anything like this. So we're already past 17 trillion. We're going to be, I think by the time the year closes out, we'll have investments of over $21 trillion based on the way we're going. And by the way, tariffs are very important. Without tariffs, perhaps it could be a little bit different, to put it mildly. Tariffs are so important. The decision in the Supreme Court would be devastating to our country if we got a negative, devastating if we got a negative decision. But this is a great day for American health and healthcare and for all of American patients. These are things that are miracles to have this happen. And they're, you know, we're bringing all our medicines, again, because of tariffs, we're bringing all our medicines. If you remember where during COVID, we made almost no medicine here. We had to go to China, we had to go to Ireland, we had to go to other places, UK, to get our medicine. We didn't make it here. Now we're making it, we'll soon be making it all here, again, because of tariffs. And my election, but because of tariffs much more. For years, politicians have talked about making healthcare affordable, but my administration is actually doing it. Americans deserve the best healthcare in the world, and we're now getting the best healthcare at the lowest price. So I'd like to ask somebody who's doing a fantastic job, Secretary Kennedy, to say a few words, followed by Dr. Oz, Dr. Klump, and then Eli Lilly, CEO David Ricks, and Novo Nordisk CEO Mike Dustar. These are incredible stars in that business. Like Dustar is a big star. And I can tell you that David Ricks is one of the hottest people in the world in business, but the business that he's in is pharmaceutical. And the job he's done with Eli Lilly is incredible. Both of these gentlemen, they really are stars in the truest sense. And it's an honor to have you in the White House. And go to it, Bobby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by thanking you, Mr. President, for declaring war on chronic disease in this country. This is something no American president has ever done. If we want to solve the chronic disease crisis, we have to tackle obesity. Obesity is the #1 driver of chronic disease. 50% of our adult population are obese or overweight, and it drives about 50% of healthcare costs in this country. Diabetes, cardiac diseases, we are going to see a decline because of this historic agreement. We're going to see a decline in costs, but also, more importantly, in the
Pendientes ahora de las declaraciones por parte de Robert Kennedy Jr. en un momento en el que estamos escuchando este anuncio de Donald Trump sobre los medicamentos y un momento en el que el presidente de Estados Unidos ha vuelto a apelar a la Corte Suprema de Estados Unidos. Dice Trump que una decisión negativa sobre los aranceles sería devastador para su país. Vuelve a advertir sobre esta decisión. Hoy decía Jamieson Greer que podría tomarse antes de final de año. Decía, bueno, pues que ayer habían escuchado propuestas, habían escuchado preguntas justas sobre este tema, estos aranceles de Trump que están en tela de juicio. Y bueno, pues el presidente de Estados Unidos también intenta presionar. Dice que una decisión negativa, es decir, paralizar estos aranceles, tumbar los aranceles, sería devastador para Estados Unidos. Vamos a seguir escuchando en este caso a Robert Kennedy.
It's not a panacea, it's not a silver bullet. President Trump has also instructed us to address and end the root causes of chronic disease, and we're doing that. We're about to release dietary guidelines that are going to change the food culture in this country. They're going to change the kind of food the military gets. They're going to change the kind of food that our children get. We're releasing those in December. The Presidential Council for Physical Fitness is going to get more Americans into, particularly our children, into physical activity so that we can attack the root causes of this. But in the meantime, there's nothing more important than we can do than lower this price. As I said, it is the #1 cost of all drugs. This is the biggest drug in our country. That's why this is the most important of all the MFN announcements we've made. This is going to have the biggest impact on the American people. All Americans, even those who are not on Medicaid and Medicare, are going to be able to get the same price for their drugs, for their GLP drugs. This happened because of the vision of David Ricks, of Mike Dustar, and the other people, and the people on our team who figured out a way to align the interests of the shareholders of their company with the health of the American public. And it is a momentous accomplishment. It took months and months of negotiations. And I had a wonderful conversation with Mike Dustar about his experience, and he thanked me for the caliber of people who are on our side of the negotiating team. Chris Klump, who walked away from $1 billion business in order to join this administration, Emma Hernandez, David Brooks, and of course, Dr. Oz and Marty McCary, who made this happen. They saw that this could be a win-win situation, that this was not a zero-sum game. The Biden administration tried to solve this problem unsuccessfully, I might add, by throwing $40 billion at it. And they were able to achieve an agreement that will actually create savings for the American public. So we're making all of this available at a savings, and that's because the price of diabetes prescriptions is also going to drop. And the savings that we get from that are now going to make it available to people who do not have diabetes, people who have a BMI of 27 and above, or pre-diabetic, or have heart disease risk. They will be able to get it, but everybody will be able to get this drug, and it's going to change. We will lose, the American public, because of this agreement, will lose 125 million pounds by this time next year. So it is going to have dramatic effects on human health in this country. And I want to thank President Trump for his leadership. He said that I'd gotten a lot done as HHS secretary, but almost none of that is due to my ability. It's because I'm surrounded by people who are smarter than me, who are more able than me. And those people came into the administration because they were inspired by President Trump. People like Chris Klump are here because they see this.
You think they are smarter than you and more
Yeah.
able? No.
Believe me, they're a lot smarter than I am.
Why did you take that job? He doesn't really mean that he's being modest, I promise you, but
It is true, unfortunately.
it's a beautiful thing.
But I want to thank you, Mr. President, because you've made me a success here by allowing me to attract these extraordinary people. And I want to again thank David Ricks, who we've been in this Oval Office again and again. You keep saying he's the smartest guy in industry, that he could talk a dog off a meat truck. But they came to the table, and Mike Newstar told me, he said,
You convinced people for 20 years that it was okay for Europe to pay $10 and for America to pay $140. That's why they make 45, 50 million a year. Finally, I said, I've had it, right? You did. He did. But anybody can do that, they're entitled. But now it's down to what it should be.
and Mike Dusar told me what a pleasure it was to negotiate with people who were smart, who had common sense, who were able to put themselves in his position and hammer out this deal that is good for everybody. And it's great for the American public. I want to close again by just saying that this is a tool in the toolkit. It is not a silver bullet. It is an arrow in our quiver. It will allow a lot of people who are locked into high-risk obesity to finally lose weight, to reset, and then start doing the kind of things that will address the root causes of obesity. So I want to thank these extraordinary CEOs. for sticking with us on this, for allowing us to make this happen. Mike Dustar said to me, he said, we've known we've had to do this for many years. We just haven't been able to get over the edge, and that this President Trump's order, his executive order, was a catalyst to do something that we always knew needed to be done. So again, thank you for your vision, for your commitment, and thank you to all the CEOs and all of my team are making this historic agreement happen.
Bobby, you haven't changed your view on Tylenol for women that are pregnant?
No, as I said.
There were some false reports out about Tylenol that Bobby changed his view. I don't think he's changed.
I'm not going to change until the science changes, and the science does not look like it's changing. It's getting stronger and stronger. Every day, what we recommend is that mothers, pregnant mothers, talk to their physicians, that the mothers of small kids talk to their physicians, and we've advised the physicians to reduce the thresholds and to reduce the amount of Tylenol that they give to children as much as possible and only use it when it's absolutely critical.
So we're going to go through some of the deal points, but it does make itself clear that the real stake here is the forgotten man. President Trump, I believe you won the election because you remember the forgotten man. You speak to them, they hear you, they listen to you, and he connects well because he actually does things that materially change their lives. Secretary Kennedy spoke passionately, as he always does, about the problems with obesity. And just to put some very fine point numbers on this, obesity itself is responsible for half of all chronic disease and definitely generates more than a quarter of all the money we spend out of CMS, to $1.75 trillion that we spend annually. We need to address this tempest of dramatically increasing prices for healthcare, and you're not going to do it just by throwing money at the problem. You have to actually literally deal with the causes of the increase in price, and pharmaceutical prices are a part of that. They've been a part of it for a long time, but this president insisted that we address it. In fact, the first time I heard this directly from you, sir, was in January at Mar-a-Lago, where he took Secretary Kennedy and myself, Mr. Ricks, who you'll hear from in a second, to dinner, and demanded explanations for most favored nation pricing and what's wrong with it. And there was not a good reason against it. Now, MAHA is critical. America will have to get fit in order to right-size the healthcare system, and MAHA has the answers. It has obesity management through diet and exercise and sleep and dealing with issues related to that. And I want to say it as clear as I can. Obesity is not an absence of GLP-1 drugs. We're all clear on that. But as Secretary Kennedy said, it is an arrow in our quiver that we must use and should use. The MAHA movement means making it easier for the right things to happen, easier for you to be healthy. If you're sitting at home and watching, that's what MAHA means to me. Reducing costs of the #1 most expensive medicine category in our country for Americans does just that. It is as MAHA as it gets. Today's the fourth MFN. President Trump highlighted the first three. Leading U.S. company, leading European company. We've dropped in fertility drugs, so we'll make lots of Trump babies, I'm hoping, by the midterms. But it's really about fairness. Fundamentally, it's fairness in pricing to Americans who have been getting ripped off, paying 3 times more than their European counterparts for the exact same product made in the same factory, in the same bottle, in the same packaging. We shouldn't be paying 3 times more, and we are no longer doing that. Fairness to the forgotten man also means dealing with the reality that they can afford a life-saving, life-changing drug that 10% or more of affluent Americans take, but folks without means can't manage it. Secretary Kennedy mentioned New York City. Actually, the #1 zip code is the Upper East Side, which is where you have property. And folks who know ritzy areas buy important real estate there because those real estate properties are worth a lot there. That should not be the #1 zip code in America for purchasing GLP-1 drugs. It speaks to the fact that we have an inherently, innately unfair system that penalizes folks who can use these medications the most, folks in the Rust Belt. Now, what are you supposed to do if the right thing to do for your health is right there, but you can't afford to get it? Folks need to be able to utilize these life-saving medications, and being fair about its distribution is essential. And we are democratizing access to these medications and dealing with a moral imperative to make sure that all Americans have access to avoiding all.
Pendientes de este anuncio farmacéutico por parte de Donald Trump, nosotros vamos a hablar precisamente del presidente de Estados Unidos, de las advertencias nucleares de Rusia. Empezamos en Noticiero de Negocios Televisión. Bienvenidos de nuevo a Negocios Televisión, bienvenidos a este espacio informativo mirando a todas las últimas horas pendientes de la tensión, la escalada nuclear entre Rusia y Estados Unidos. El presidente Trump hablaba de que estaría trabajando en un plan con China y con Rusia. Dice que Estados Unidos es la primera potencia nuclear del mundo. Decía que Rusia es la segunda y que China está muy por detrás, pero que alcanzarán a Estados Unidos en 4 o 5 años. Escuchamos el aviso nuclear de Donald Trump.
Made it clear that the days of political correctness in our military, they're over. We don't want to get into wars. I rebuilt the military. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We make the best equipment, the best missiles, the best rockets, the best everything. We redid our nuclear. We're the #1 nuclear power, which I hate to admit because it's so horrible. It's such a horrible situation if it ever has to be used. Russia's second, China's a distant third, but they'll catch us within 4 or 5 years.
Todo esto mientras que el presidente ruso Vladimir Putin encargaba a su gobierno que presente un informe sobre la necesidad de reanudar ensayos nucleares después de que Trump se planteara la opción de realizar estas pruebas con armamento atómico. Putin pedía a los ministros de Defensa y Exteriores, además de los servicios secretos y estructuras civiles, que presenten una propuesta consensuada sobre el posible comienzo de preparativos de pruebas con armas nucleares. Dice que el Kremlin se sigue manteniendo fiel a su política, pero recordaba que si Estados Unidos o cualquier otro Estado hace pruebas, Rusia tendrá que dar una respuesta adecuada.
Я поручаю Министерству иностранных дел, Министерству обороны Российской Федерации, специальным службам и гражданским ведомствам, соответствующим гражданским ведомствам, сделать все для того, чтобы собрать.
Una reunión en la que se hablaba sobre si hay que volver o no a los ensayos nucleares y una reunión en la que faltaba una persona, faltaba Sergei Lavrov, el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores, estuvo ausente en la reunión de ayer donde Putin hablaba de posibles ensayos nucleares. Medios rusos están informando que el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores estaba ausente por acuerdo mutuo. Dice que prácticamente simultáneamente, Lavrov ha perdido su puesto como jefe de la delegación de Rusia en la cumbre del G20. Según informan, también ha desaparecido del programa informativo. Sus últimas declaraciones públicas datan de finales de octubre. Antes se informaba de que el gobierno ruso está buscando a responsables del fracaso de las conversaciones entre Putin y Trump en Budapest. Lavrov ha sido señalado como el principal culpable después de la llamada telefónica con Marco Rubio que ha conducido a la ruptura total, al menos a la cancelación de la reunión en Budapest. Mientras tanto, el Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov, ha respondido a las acusaciones del secretario general de la OTAN, Mark Rutte, que afirmaba que hace tiempo dejó de prestar atención a las reuniones organizadas por Vladimir Putin. En su visita a Rumanía este miércoles, Rutte ha sido consultado sobre precisamente esta decisión de Rusia en el Consejo de Seguridad. Decía Rutte que hace tiempo que dejó de reaccionar a las reuniones que organiza Putin. Dice, le pagan como presidente de Rusia, por eso las organiza. Por su parte, comentando estas palabras, Dmitry Peskov decía que precisamente ahí radica el problema de la OTAN y de sus dirigentes, que por un lado dicen que no escuchan a Rusia y por otro que no lo entienden, pero sin embargo ni siquiera son capaces de escuchar. Miramos precisamente a Rusia. El Ministerio de Defensa ha dicho que sus tropas se han hecho con el control de otros 64 edificios en Prokrovsk y sus alrededores durante las últimas 24 horas. Dice que las unidades de asalto del segundo ejército han continuado destruyendo a las Fuerzas Armadas de Ucrania cercadas en la parte oriental del distrito central y en la zona industrial occidental, además de expulsar a los combatientes ucranianos en Ativka y en Rog. Según las fuerzas rusas, han tomado 64 edificios en la mencionada zona durante la jornada pasada. También ha informado de que fueron repelidos 13 ataques por parte de Ucrania. Mientras tanto, la refinería de Volgogrado de la petrolera rusa Lukoil ha suspendido sus operaciones tras ser atacada con drones ucranianos. En lo que informan este jueves la agencia Reuters, indicaron que la unidad de procesamiento primario CDU5, con una capacidad diaria de 9.100 toneladas métricas, una quinta parte de la capacidad total de la planta, y una unidad de hidrodesintegración con capacidad de 11.000 toneladas diarias resultaron dañadas en el ataque. Lukoil no ha respondido a las solicitudes de comentarios. Mientras tanto, en Polonia, el ministro de Defensa ha presentado un plan de entrenamiento voluntario para civiles que va a entrenar a 400.000 ciudadanos el año que viene como parte del plan de capacitación universal para la defensa, bautizado como En Guardia. En una conferencia de prensa en la capital polaca presentaba junto al jefe del Estado Mayor el programa de defensa civil más grande de la historia de Polonia, que se dirige a ciudadanos de junior a senior, incluyendo a los estudiantes de primaria. Dice que cada uno de ellos está llamado a la defensa, que nadie está exento de ello. En la OTAN volvemos a mirar al secretario general Mark Rutte ha lanzado un importante mensaje sobre Rusia. Dice que parece cada vez más evidente que la presión rusa ha llegado para quedarse. Pedía a los miembros de la OTAN que no sean ingenuos, que esto va a seguir después de la guerra.
I'm confident that together we have what it takes to outgun, outproduce and outsmart those that seek to harm or diminish us. To do this well, we should focus on three key drivers: quantity, creativity and cooperation. First on quantity,
Mientras tanto, el presidente de Estados Unidos decía que los bombardeos contra cárteles terroristas no se limitan solo a Venezuela. Señala que hay otros países involucrados tras más de 2 meses de ataques estadounidenses a lanchas en el Pacífico y en el Caribe. Decía, estamos estallando cárteles terroristas y estamos reventándolos, ligados a Maduro en Venezuela, pero también a otros. Decía, miren, no solo es Venezuela, hay un montón de cosas que están viniendo. Trump no aclaró a qué otros países se refiere, pero defendía estos ataques que han acabado con la vida de al menos 66 personas. Precisamente en Venezuela hablan sobre la decisión de aplazar la cumbre de las Américas que se tomó supuestamente por indicación del secretario de Estado de Estados Unidos, Marco Rubio, con el fin de evitar críticas hacia el país norteamericano en medio de las discrepancias por la amenaza militar de Washington en la región caribeña. Es lo que informa Diosdado Cabello. Decía, fue el mismo señor de la guerra, es decir, Marco Rubio, quien le dio la orden al presidente de República Dominicana para que suspendiera la cumbre de las Américas que se iba a hacer en ese país los primeros días de diciembre porque el ambiente no les favorece, es lo que apunta el propio Cabello. En este sentido explica que, a pesar de que Washington ha intentado chantajear a toda la región para que se les unan en su guerra contra Caracas, muchos países iban a utilizar esta cumbre como una plataforma para denunciar el despliegue militar de Estados Unidos en el Caribe. Advierte que el secretario de Estado de Estados Unidos tiene un plan bajo la manga que podría llevar a cabo a finales de este mes. Dice que trabaja en un falso positivo que tiene como objetivo aumentar las tensiones entre Estados Unidos y Venezuela. Precisamente miramos al presidente de Colombia, Gustavo Petro. Ha dicho este jueves que Donald Trump está contra la humanidad. En su discurso de apertura en la COP30 decía en este sentido que el propio Donald Trump está ausente en este evento y que está contra la humanidad. Dice que no asistir a ese evento lo demuestra. Vamos a escuchar el duro mensaje de Petro contra Trump.
La ausencia de los Estados Unidos aquí. El que el señor Donald Trump no venga, el que tenga una conducta, el personal, de negación de la ciencia y lleve a su sociedad con los ojos cerrados al abismo y con ella a la humanidad. El señor Trump está equivocado. La ciencia alumbra el colapso si Estados Unidos no se mueve hacia la descarbonización de su propia economía. No es taladrar, taladrar y taladrar. Está 100% equivocado el presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump. 2, el que se lleve a Europa a invertir en más armas de acuerdo a su Producto Interno Bruto. Ese es un error de Europa, si hace caso. No es un problema de defensa y seguridad, no es Rusia el enemigo, es la crisis climática el enemigo.
El presidente de Estados Unidos, que reconocía este miércoles que los republicanos han aprendido mucho tras las victorias demócratas en las elecciones estatales y locales de este martes. Una derrota republicana que atribuía al cierre del gobierno, convertido ya en el más largo de la historia en el país. Arremetía contra el discurso de Mandani tras esta victoria, calificándolo de muy airado. Precisamente vamos a mirar a Donald Trump en medio de este anuncio sobre medicamentos. Vamos a ver lo que acaba de ocurrir en el despacho Oval. Están viendo las imágenes de este anuncio sobre medicamentos de Eli Lilly. Vemos al propio Donald Trump preocupado por la salud de uno de los asistentes a este evento. Están echando ahora mismo a los medios de comunicación. Mensaje, momento complicado en el despacho Oval. Vemos la preocupación de Donald Trump después de que uno de los asistentes a este evento, a este gran anuncio, haya caído desmayado. Vamos a estar muy atentos a esta última hora, atentos a aclaraciones, explicaciones por parte de Donald Trump en un momento en el que precisamente la Casa Blanca se prepara para desplegar al ejército de Estados Unidos en una base aérea en Damasco, en principio para ayudar a reforzar un posible pacto de seguridad entre Siria e Israel que Trump está negociando actualmente. Esta medida supondría un cambio radical en las relaciones entre Siria y Estados Unidos tras la caída del presidente Bashar al-Assad en diciembre de 2024. El nuevo presidente del país, Ahmed al-Sharaa, se va a reunir con Donald Trump en la Casa Blanca este lunes, un hecho histórico sin precedentes para un jefe de Estado sirio. En concreto, dice que podría utilizar esta base para poder monitorizar un acuerdo entre Israel y Siria. Dice que no está claro a qué sitio se refiere este informe, pero la agencia dice que ha accedido a omitir la ubicación exacta después de que un funcionario de Estados Unidos solicitara que la información se mantuviera en reserva por motivos de seguridad. Muy atentos a estas imágenes del despacho Oval, atentos a explicaciones por parte de Estados Unidos. De momento hemos perdido la señal en directo del despacho Oval. Estaban viendo las imágenes de este desmayo que hemos vivido en directo. Vamos a seguir atentos a esta información, pero antes les contamos que Estados Unidos sigue modernizando sus fuerzas nucleares en medio de las amenazas de sus adversarios y al parecer se ha presentado un nuevo misil de crucero nuclear furtivo. Según varias fuentes, según el sitio web de aviación militar Aviationist, informaban que un bombardero de Estados Unidos B-52H fue visto transportando dos armas no identificadas mientras sobrevolaba el Valle de Owens en California este 29 de octubre. Dice que las armas se parecían mucho a la representación del LRSO. En concreto decían que está midiendo la capacidad de supervivencia y dice, pues casi va a ser lanzado desde el aire. El Centro de Armas Nucleares de la Fuerza Aérea de Estados Unidos ha informado que el LRSO proporcionaría el alcance y podría penetrar en el espacio aéreo defendido. Dicen además que es un diseño de 10 años que estaría enfrentándose o estaría también teniendo graves, importantes amenazas extranjeras. Muy atentos a las últimas horas, muy pendientes de Estados Unidos. Vamos a poner el foco de nuevo en Donald Trump. Vamos a contarles la última hora en torno al secretario de Transporte de Estados Unidos, que anunciaba que la Administración Federal de Aviación va a implementar una reducción del 10% en la capacidad de vuelos programados en 40 aeropuertos de alto volumen a partir del 7 de noviembre. Este era el mensaje de Sean Duffy.
One of them, though, is going to be that there is going to be a 10% reduction in capacity at 40 of our locations. The administrator is going to tell you that this is data-based. This is not based on what airline travels, has more flights out of what location. This is about where is the pressure and how do we...
Pendientes de Estados Unidos, mirando también a los mensajes por parte de China. Vamos a hacer una pequeña pausa, 2 minutos enseguida. Más información en Negocios Televisión. Establecer controles sobre quién puede acceder a ella. Hay blockchains híbridas que combinan las características de las dos anteriores. Las organizaciones pueden establecer un sistema privado basado en permisos junto a uno público sin ellos. Y por último también hay blockchains federadas, cuando el proceso de consenso es controlado por un conjunto preseleccionado de nodos o de partes interesadas. Por último, vamos a comentar los beneficios de la blockchain, y es que ofrece grandes ventajas comerciales que ayudan a las compañías de muchas formas, como por ejemplo, da más confianza entre las partes implicadas al ofrecer datos fiables y compartidos, reduce la necesidad de intermediarios externos, ofrece mayor seguridad, pues todos los miembros de la red deben llegar a un acuerdo sobre la precisión de los datos y las transacciones validadas son inalterables. También crea un registro a prueba de manipulaciones en tiempo real, da mayor eficiencia al eliminar el tiempo perdido en las acciones de conciliación de registros y por último permite seguir y localizar bienes o servicios a través de la cadena de suministro. Blockchain es una tecnología basada en una cadena de bloques de operaciones descentralizada y pública. Esta tecnología genera una base de datos compartida a la que tienen acceso sus participantes, los cuales pueden rastrear cada transacción que hayan realizado. Para que se hagan una idea, es como un gran libro de contabilidad inmodificable y compartido que van escribiendo una gran cantidad de ordenadores de forma simultánea. El modelo más antiguo de una blockchain se creó a principios de la década de los 90, cuando el científico informático Stuart Haber y el físico...
Buenos días, 8 de la mañana, ¿han desayunado bien?
Si estás viendo esta cadena es que te gusta estar bien informado y te gustan mucho los mercados financieros.
No, pero no critiquéis. Aquí vemos todo lo contrario. Os oía todos los días.
Esto lo hacen estupendamente.
Es un cachondeo. Pero lo que está claro es que ahora mismo...
Traéis a invitados excepcionales.
Good afternoon, Cathy Booth. Buenos días, 8 de la mañana es la figura de Charlie. Buenos días, 8 de la mañana, dicen que al oro le han bajado a la tierra después de la jornada de ayer.
Seguimos en Negocios Televisión.
Mañana continuamos en Negocios Televisión.
Sean bienvenidos de nuevo a Negocios Televisión.
Negocios Televisión.
Sobre todo intentando ver lo que Europa está poniendo encima de la mesa en esos ejercicios militares.
Seguimos en Negocios Televisión, seguimos atentos a las últimas horas, pendientes de este momento que vivíamos hace escasos minutos en la señal de Negocios Televisión, este anuncio en el despacho Oval y las imágenes que les vamos a mostrar a continuación. Les contábamos este anuncio por parte de Donald Trump con Eli Lilly, con Novo Nordisk. Este era el momento en el que se estaba hablando precisamente de este acuerdo y esta es la imagen. Hemos visto a un representante de Eli Lilly desmayado en el despacho Oval. Vemos a Donald Trump levantándose, preocupándose por su salud. Veíamos también a Ludwig, veíamos a Robert Kennedy Jr. Empiezan, como ven, a echar a la prensa. Se ha terminado ya este evento, se ha cerrado la señal de, bueno, este momento que hemos vivido en el despacho Oval. Una persona, en concreto un representante de Eli Lilly, se ha desmayado literalmente en medio de este anuncio histórico. Se hablaba de cómo recortar los precios de los medicamentos. Decía el propio Donald Trump que los habitantes, los ciudadanos de Estados Unidos tienen que tener los medicamentos más bajos del mundo. Pues un representante de una de estas empresas, en concreto de Eli Lilly, se ha desmayado de esta forma. El evento ha sido cancelado, estamos a la espera de ver si hay más declaraciones o no por parte de Donald Trump. Estaban viendo ahí cómo echaban a los compañeros de la prensa en lo que es, bueno, una imagen cuanto menos preocupante la que se vivía en el despacho Oval. Muy atentos a esta última hora, esperando, bueno, pues si hay algún tipo de declaración oficial por parte de Donald Trump. Enseguida vamos a escuchar, por cierto, a su representante especial para Oriente Medio, a Steve Witkoff. Esta es la imagen viral en estos momentos, este desmayo en el despacho Oval. Vamos a mirar precisamente al presidente de Estados Unidos, un Donald Trump que hablaba en las últimas horas sobre Nigeria. Este era su mensaje sobre el cristianismo.
Chuck Schumer, the radical Democrat Congress, to stop playing games with the people's lives and to pass a clean funding bill that they've done 30 times before, and to reopen government immediately. Just reopen.
Mientras tanto, les contamos que en China la tripulación de la misión Shenzhou 20 ha tenido que retrasar su regreso a la Tierra tras la preocupación de que su nave espacial hubiera sido golpeada por basura espacial. Es lo que informa la Agencia Espacial Tripulada de China. La Agencia Espacial China ha anunciado el inicio de una evaluación de impacto en la Shenzhou 20 para garantizar la seguridad de sus taikonautas, como se conoce a los astronautas chinos, según han informado medios estatales. El regreso de la nave a la Tierra estaba previsto para este miércoles. El Shenzhou 20 fue lanzado desde el centro de lanzamiento de satélites de Yuquan, en Mongolia Interior, el 25 de abril, para una misión de 6 meses a la Estación Espacial Permanente de China, en concreto a Tiangong. La Unión Europea ha reconocido en privado que tiene opciones limitadas para presionar a China a fin de que flexibilice los controles a la exportación de tierras raras que han afectado a sectores clave como el automotriz y el de defensa. Según fuentes cercanas a las conversaciones, altos funcionarios de la Unión Europea han comunicado a los Estados miembros que los esfuerzos por reducir la dependencia de China siguen siendo difíciles y que las iniciativas de seguridad económica del bloque no han dado los resultados esperados. Pekín continúa restringiendo las exportaciones de tierras raras vitales para los vehículos eléctricos y la producción de defensa mediante la exigencia de permisos de importación. Si bien la Unión Europea se va a beneficiar de una pausa en los nuevos controles a la exportación acordados entre Trump y Xi Jinping, las restricciones impuestas en abril se mantendrán vigentes. Las recientes conversaciones entre funcionarios chinos y de la Unión Europea han arrojado escasos avances. El portavoz de la Comisión Europea, Olo Gil, ha afirmado que se han intensificado las conversaciones con China para simplificar los procedimientos de exportación y ofrecer mayor certidumbre a las industrias europeas. Decía además que las conversaciones van a continuar. Mientras tanto, el presidente de Estados Unidos hablaba sobre el Obamacare. Estaba hablando, lo escuchaban hace escasos minutos, sobre el mal sistema de salud que está montado en Estados Unidos. Mandaba un mensaje claro, dice que el gobierno tiene que reabrirse ya.
Time for Chuck Schumer, the radical Democrat Congress, to stop playing games with the people's lives and to pass a clean funding bill that they've done 30 times before. And to reopen government immediately.
Los equipos de emergencia están respondiendo a una fuga de amoníaco en la planta de CF Industries cerca de Yazoo City. La agencia de manejo de emergencias de Mississippi informaba del incidente y está coordinando las evacuaciones de la zona de Renshaw Road y de Generate Road. Los residentes informaron haber sentido una fuerte sacudida, lo que sugiere una explosión en el lugar donde se observa una gran columna de humo. El amoníaco se usa ampliamente en los fertilizantes que proporciona un nutriente clave, en concreto el nitrógeno, esencial para el crecimiento de las plantas. El nitrato de amonio, derivado del amoníaco, es un componente común en explosivos, particularmente en mezclas como el ANFO. Múltiples agencias se encuentran en el lugar y la patrulla de carreteras de Mississippi colabora con el control del tráfico. CF Industries produce hidrógeno y nitrógeno. Estamos a la espera de conocer más detalles sobre esta información. Países de Estados Unidos a la espera también de saber qué está pasando en el despacho Oval. Vamos a poner el foco en la NASA, y es que desde el pasado 1 de octubre la NASA cesó la gran mayoría de su actividad. La exploración espacial de Estados Unidos se ha visto reducida a mínimos. A esto hay que sumar que de cara a 2026 la propuesta presupuestaria plantea una reducción del 24% del total destinado a la NASA, un ajuste aún más drástico del 47% en su programa científico. Meses después del inicio de las tensiones, la realidad es que la NASA se encuentra en un parón crítico que ha provocado que de los cerca de 20.000 empleados que componían esta agencia, actualmente solo se encuentren trabajando unas 3.000 personas. Mientras dure este parón, solamente aquellos proyectos relacionados con la Estación Espacial Internacional, las operaciones satelitales y las misiones Artemis serán las únicas prioridades de la agencia. En este sentido, uno de los grandes misterios que la NASA ha dejado sin resolver es el del cometa interestelar Tracy Atlas. Ante esta situación, expertos como Avi Loeb han solicitado a la agencia que deje de ocultar información crucial sobre este cometa. Vamos a escuchar lo que nos decía esta misma semana Avi Loeb sobre la NASA.
The highest resolution images that were obtained of Tracy Atlas were taken on October 2nd and 3rd by the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. We haven't seen those images, and that's quite unfortunate because they have a resolution of 30 kilometers per pixel, but unfortunately NASA did not release this data because of the government shutdown that started on October 1st, and I just think that scientific data should not be held hostage to politics, and it doesn't take much effort to actually share the data with other scientists.
Por ello, ante la actual situación que vive la agencia, el astrofísico de Harvard ha detallado que la ciencia no debería ser rehén de la política de confinamiento del momento, ya que la difusión de estas imágenes habrían sido de especial importancia para la comunidad científica. Loeb hablaba o ha intercambiado correspondencia con Ana Paulina Luna sobre la solicitud formal relacionada con la NASA, una solicitud que se completaba en las últimas horas. Vamos a volver a mirar este momento que les estábamos contando en el despacho Oval. Les contábamos estos anuncios por parte de Eli Lilly, por parte de Novo Nordisk. Estaban viendo, bueno, pues esta imagen que lamentablemente se estará haciendo viral en estos momentos. Vamos a contarles qué ha pasado. Al parecer, el ejecutivo de Novo Nordisk, se dice que es director ejecutivo, Gordon Findlay, se ha desmayado en el despacho Oval justo cuando Donald Trump estaba anunciando unos recortes históricos en los medicamentos. Como decimos, Gordon Findlay, ejecutivo de una farmacéutica, en concreto de Novo Nordisk, se ha desmayado en este momento viral junto al presidente de Estados Unidos. Al parecer estaba junto al vicepresidente ejecutivo y director de operaciones de Novo Nordisk, que se ha desplomado en esta rueda de prensa. Los médicos están atendiendo en estos momentos a este ejecutivo de Novo Nordisk que bueno, pues ha protagonizado este momento viral. Muy atentos a la última hora, sobre todo bueno, pues rezando, esperando que no sea absolutamente nada, esperando que no haya sucedido nada con este Gordon Findlay, con este hombre, este director ejecutivo de Novo Nordisk. Nosotros vamos a seguir mirando a la actualidad y vamos a poner el foco de nuevo en Miami. Hemos escuchado hace unos minutos a Jamie Dimon, vamos a escuchar ahora al enviado especial de Estados Unidos para Oriente Medio. Está hablando en estos momentos Steve Witkoff.
Middle East. Only President Trump does, Brett. Great to be here at the American Business Forum. Steve, it's great to see you. We're lucky that you're in town. You've bounced all over dealing with complex issues, trying to find peace in a lot of different places. But you also have this amazing business career, and I want to start there about your early life. You know, where did you grow up? How did it shape you? How did it kind of shape your drive and approach to business?
Well, I was born in the Bronx. My dad and my mom met in the Bronx. We moved to Baldwin Harbor, 1963. I think my dad paid $5,800 for the house there, Brett, a split level. We made another move to Long Island, and that's the story of my early childhood.
And did it shape how you looked at things, your upbringing?
Well, I always wanted to be in business, and my father wanted to be a physician. My grandfather had a heart attack, and he had to take over a sort of fledgling tailor business that my dad then grew into a ladies' coat manufacturer. But I think he always had a dream of wanting something more. And I practiced law. I represented the president, as you know, and I always wanted to be a real estate guy.
So you have developed some of the most iconic projects around the country. For these folks, maybe in real estate, other business, what is the secret of spotting a great opportunity before everyone else sees it? Is there something there?
I get asked that question all the time.
I'm sure.
I never have an answer that people are satisfied with. I spoke once at Columbia. They were all MBA graduate students, and no one liked my answer. They all thought that we had some sort of secret sauce as to find the right opportunity. I said the other day at the dinner for the speakers that we went deep into Miami when Francis Suarez came into office, as well as, thank you, as well as the governor. And because investing behind solid government, pro-business government, I think is an important feature. Giuliani changed the investment climate in New York in 1992. And then Mayor Bloomberg accentuated that. Low crime, pro-business, business doing things with government and a public-private benefits package, I mean informally. And it worked in New York. Unfortunately, it's turning now.
You know, I asked Ken Griffin about that yesterday, about New York, and you think that that will have an effect in real estate there?
I don't even think rent-stabilized housing has been destroyed. The value package there has destroyed it. But I think you see a lot of these people who are voting for people like Mandami, and they think it's just a bunch of rich people losing their money. That's not the really bad condition. The bad condition is you're going to see banks not finance that sector anymore. And when liquidity moves out of the system, that hurts everybody. People don't fix their properties up. That ultimately hurts the working class people who live there. And I grew up on working class housing. That's where I started my business, so I know it very well.
So speaking of that, real estate obviously has changed dramatically in the past decade, from financing, development cycles, cultural shifts, how people live and work around the country. What's been the biggest transformation that you've seen?
In the business?
Yeah, real estate.
Well, it's become institutionalized. When I first went into the business, Brett, in 1986, you didn't have J.P. Morgan in the business, or Blackstone in the business, or Apollo in the business, or there's so much institutional capital now. They were all afraid of owning housing. They thought that there was some sort of liability attached to it, and now everybody loves it.
What's the piece of advice that you wished someone had given you early on?
Don't sell.
Don't sell.
Yeah.
Hold on to it.
Yeah, but I couldn't afford not to sell. I mean, I had to sell because I started with a $20,000 check from my dad, who, and that was probably half his liquid net worth. But if I didn't sell, look, I wasn't just in it for the money. I actually enjoyed the people I met. I was blessed to be in my own business. So, but when I say don't sell, what I mean is that if you have conviction, if you believe in things, then stick with it.
But also, if you have the financial ability to hold on to the property over time, that has paid off, is what you're saying.
Correct. Like we're just, I'm really not in the business anymore because I've divested. So I have a son who runs the real estate business, and he's very good at it. And I have another son who runs our crypto business, and he's very good at that. But I tell my son, who oversees the real estate business, we shouldn't sell anything. Now, we have a lot in Florida. We've got a big, deep, long bet on Florida for all the obvious reasons. The only downside to Florida people can think of is hurricanes. And yet we haven't really seen one this year. California and Texas have much worse situations than that. So I just don't think you can underwrite global climate change and so forth. I think Florida is on the move.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, talk about Miami specifically in contrast to big cities like New York and LA.
Well, they're coming down here, Brett. I mean, I think in short order, you'll have some bigger headquarter moves. People want to spend their time here. And you've got great airports, great airlift coming in here. The restaurants are now wonderful. You've got sports teams down here, culture, diversity of population from all over the world. And you've got a lot of capital coming down here. I mean, Jamie Dimon is now down here, he's the biggest of them all.
Yeah. You know, you've recently served as a special envoy to the Middle East. Now you have this new title, Special Envoy for Peace Missions, because you're doing peace missions all over the world.
Thank you.
You have been at the forefront, at the tip of the spear of some of the most relevant geopolitical events, really, of the last few years. There's part of your story many may not know. Let's take a look at this video.
Scott Stornetta emplearon técnicas criptográficas en una cadena de bloques como una manera de proteger documentos digitales contra la manipulación de datos. La tecnología blockchain se suele utilizar para el registro de transacciones de criptomonedas, pero es apta para muchos otros tipos de datos digitales y puede aplicarse a una amplia gama de casos de uso. La diferencia que hay entre blockchain y una red centralizada, es decir, un servidor tradicional que almacena datos, es que la red de blockchain se ejecuta en múltiples ordenadores distribuidos por todo el mundo y no en un sitio único. Esto hace que la red blockchain presente una serie de ventajas como la privacidad.
I became friends with them. And this job is the most blessed of them all. I mean, the president gave me this opportunity. Sometimes I don't even know how to thank him. He thanks me all the time. I say, sir, I need to thank you. I'm getting more out of this than the other side is. I met so many families. You know, Brett, one of the things that got me through my boy's death is understanding that other people had it worse than me. I met a family who buried 3 children out of 4. And so I met those hostage families, and I remember thinking, what would every night be for me if I went to sleep and I had a daughter who was there, and I felt she was being mistreated? How would I deal with that? Or a son who was in the military and wasn't being treated correctly. On some level, my son's death was quick. The notice was fast to me. I heard about it from the doctors at Cedars-Sinai. It's the only time in my life I fainted. And I just did. I just don't even remember, you know, maybe 15 seconds of it. And I think these people had it a lot worse than me. If I was going to lose a child, I wouldn't want to lose a child that way, being terrorized every single night. And we became friends and bonded with them. I remember when I'm probably going to be traveling to Israel over the weekend for one of the funerals, and I was talking to the Nutras and the Chens who just got their children back, and I thought to myself, I know I don't want to call it a happy moment, because I know it's bittersweet. They know their child was gone, but you know, sometimes you can't come to terms with it. And you know, I'll tell you, I'll point something out. Every family who came to the White House to see me, I would go down to the president and I would say, so-and-so is here. And he knew who they all were. And he didn't refuse a single visit, Brett. And he became, I think, as impacted emotionally as I did. He doesn't, as you well know, you're a good friend, he doesn't like to show that part of his personality. But, you know, he's an incredible human being. He really is. And he didn't refuse a single visit. I mean, that's old school. He heard what it was like, the struggle they had been going through, and I don't know, it's kind of really, I think it's kind of amazing to have a president who is that compassionate, and yet he doesn't get acknowledged for it.
You know, you've had some massive success in your business career. Huge properties that launched and made you a lot of money, your company a lot of money. But that success, compared to watching those hostages hug their families after all that time, just put that in context.
I'd give it all up. I mean, I would. I mean, I don't take a salary. I pay for all my own expenses. I travel all over the world. I don't ask for a gas. I don't mean this to be a testament to me. I'm saying to you that it's worth more than any form of money, to help people, to bring lives home, to feel like I do it. Thank you. Thank you. You know, to feel like I do it in, you know, like my boy's death now means something to me. It means that I get to carry on with his spirit. I actually said this very same thing to Ruby Chen yesterday. I said, your boy, look at, you lost your son. He fought on behalf of his country.
His remains just came back.
His remains just came back. The funeral is Sunday. I said, look at you and your wife were indefatigable in pursuing his remains back. But you raised public consciousness about these people in the tunnels who were being held. And that's what allowed us to create the pressure to bring everybody home. That's you having done it on his behalf. That's a memory, a feeling that you'll have for the rest of your life. And they're not going to stop fighting ever again, these people. They're not going to give up for any of the remaining bodies.
You know, a lot of business people, entrepreneurs in this audience, you've dealt with some of the most complex negotiations now and dynamics around the world. You obviously dealt with complex negotiations in your business life before that. But what did you learn about negotiation and trust and leadership since being in this job?
Well, trust and integrity is everything. and people have to respect you and believe in you. World leaders today respect and trust the United States of America because of Donald Trump's leadership. And that's just a fact. Thank you. I don't think they're used to that. I think they were used to people before this election who would say certain things and not do what they say. And he does what he says. And it carries a lot of weight in the world.
You know, the Abraham Accords kind of reshaped, obviously, parts of the Middle East, political, economic landscape. From your perspective, what's the next frontier for regional collaboration, and what does that look like?
Well, look, Abraham Accords are big. I'm flying back to Washington tonight because we're going to announce tonight another country coming into the Abraham Accords tonight. Wow. Yeah.
So do you want to, lift the curtain here, or do you want to? I have a show at 6 o'clock tonight.
I don't know if it's out yet, and the president constantly says that, he thinks it's important, and how I do my job because I do it in this way, and I'm not a leaker.
Okay, all right.
So,
well, if you could tell me before special report, that'd be helpful.
I think it's going to be news by like 6:30 tonight.
Okay, all right, we'll get it on. But bigger picture, next frontier, you think more things are happening, dominoes are falling.
Well, look, the critical piece of Gaza now is implementing. I was on the phone before I just got in with the Turkish foreign minister, with Ron Dermer. So Jared, I, and a very, very, very strong team are very focused on implementation. What you learned what I learned in the real estate business is just because you bought the deal didn't mean you were going to make any money from it. And so you really had to be focused on the execution, what the exit plan was, and execute correctly. And that's what we're doing in Gaza. And I think if we hold it together, then we'll have even more credibility around the world. And I'm very confident we will hold it together and we will complete the mission. I also think that what we're trying to do in Gaza with the CMCC, where we're bringing a lot of countries together consensually to work with one another, that is the paradigm or the model for what will happen in Ukraine, Russia, when we settle that. And we will settle it. And I think that's probably the most important one to settle next.
Yeah. Let me just finish with Gaza. For some people who look at it and say it's stuck in second gear and it's not moving forward, I know you see things that we don't see. The thought was that these Gulf nations, perhaps other Arab countries, were going to put forces in and then Hamas would disarm eventually. You're saying it is step by step moving that way.
Well, first of all, Hamas has always indicated that they would disarm. They've said so. They've said it to us directly in that famous meeting that Jared had with them. And so I hope that they keep their word, because I think if they do, they'll understand that the development plan that we have for Gaza is really terrific. A lot better than anyone has ever discussed before. How we're going to finance it, aspirational upside for the people to be a part of it, tremendous jobs program. So I think as people begin to see what we're going to do there, I think they're going to be very, very bought in. But that said, and just to explain Hamas's position, we are right in the middle of standing up a decommissioning process of weapons, a demilitarization, an amnesty program. And Hamas has always said that we're going to need the international security force to come in here and be the layer who they give the weapons to. And we haven't finished that yet. That hopefully finishes in the next 3 weeks. And we think that'll be the opportunity, that'll be the inflection point where we see if everyone's going to do as they say they're going to do and demilitarize. And we may even get a look, by the way, in a microcosm sort of way. We may see the model of what we're trying to do here, or what we intend to do here, with these 200 fighters who are trapped in Rafah. And whether they're going to be able to raise their hands, walk out, turn over their weapons. And so this will be one of the tests.
You talk about Russia, Ukraine. You talked about trust and leadership. It seems like people looking from the outside, and maybe on the inside, don't really believe they could trust Russian President Vladimir Putin. You suggest that it is moving forward. What would you say to this group?
Well, I mean, he's never, I've met with him 6 times, and they were, I mean, I don't know that there was a meeting less than 4 hours. In some meetings were as long as 5 hours. And I think it's a tough struggle. I think we have a lot of work to do with regard to security protocols for Ukraine. There's a lot of discussion that technical teams have to have happen but at the lower level before the leaders can get to a deal. But I sense that there's some progress today. But I think it's a tough conflict. I think that both sides don't trust each other. And that's a really difficult place to be. It's the same issues we had in Israel. Hamas thinks that Israel will not keep its word, and Israel feels that Hamas will not keep its word. And we had some very, straightforward, blunt conversations with both sides about needing to take the chance. And I am hopeful that in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, people will make bold leadership decisions and take that chance.
What surprised you most about working in government compared to the private sector?
God, I think the private sector was a setup for me. It really was. And New York's a tough place, and it's certainly a tough place to crack into. But we managed to do it, and it was all about hard work. I don't remember. I don't think I took a vacation in the first 3 or 4 years of my professional life. Like, you couldn't find people today who would tell you that. So I think it's about a lot of hard work, and I'm working for a man, Brett, as you know, who has this obsessive, indomitable streak. Nothing satisfies him after you've told him that you've made the deal. And I don't mean that he's not grateful for it. He wants to push on and get the next one done. That's who he is. He just wants to make the world a better place, and it is this constant drive to do that. I remember when we called the president, we said we had a deal, Jared and I, we had a deal in Gaza, and he said, "That's wonderful. How are we doing in Russia?" And I think that's who you want in a commander-in-chief. And I'm hard driving like that too. Maybe not as much as him, but his energy level is so powerful, and I was with him yesterday, and he's traveling in here to do this, and then he's going back to do, God knows. I mean, I think my schedule is hectic. It's small compared to his. So he inspires that's why his team is so successful now. First of all, it's a tight team. It's a really loyal team. They're pro him, for him. I tell the president this all the time. And I don't know, it's just one of the I think it's the most blessed experience of my life to be doing what I'm doing.
As you talk to small business owners, entrepreneurs, yesterday Ken Griffin said, hustle. If you can out-hustle, you can beat 90% of the folks who are out there.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ken. Totally. You couldn't say it better, and it's simple, but it's true. Out-hustle. I agree with that. Outwork people. I remember when I got my first job, they told me it started at 8. My father told me to get in at 7. I got in at 7 every single day. And he said to me, never get in the elevator before you know that the boss has gotten in the elevator first. And so out-hustle was the message, and I think you got to do that.
How did the experience representing your country, engaging with leaders across the Middle East, across the world, change your view of leadership, of legacy, of where America stands in the world?
That leadership matters, that one person can matter. Donald Trump's election is so consequential. It changed everything out there. And that tells you how important it is. Policy matters. You look at every one of all of the initiatives that he's doing now. It's all clicking. It's all working out there. And the world is becoming a better and a safer place. And I think government matters. Like I tell my children now, you should think about some sort of civic service. I think it makes you feel a lot better. makes you feel better about yourself. I think national service, when I go to Israel and I meet these young kids who are all in the military, 18 years old, you're in the military, but they're proud of it, and they're serving their country, and I think we would do well with that.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Pardon me?
What do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I hope my legacy is that I'm remembered as a good person who tried to do things in the memory of his son. I hope.
Amazing. And last thing is we're talking to this group. You see, when you look at the world, optimism. You are optimistic. You look at the world and say it's changing for the better.
I do. I do. I think Donald Trump, the greatest thing that we did for him, for this country, was to make sure that Donald Trump got elected. And I am, Brett, I go into that Oval Office and I am in awe of the things that we're working on today. How to drop mortgage rates, how to find peace in the world, how to make sure we initiate tariff policy, because it's given us a lot of leverage out there. On top of that, we're making money. Just how to make the world a better place. He's interested in fixing everything. We can't fix everything, but we're going to try. And I think that's the sort of president that we have. We have someone who's going to use his power to try everywhere he can.
And he makes decisions pretty quickly. I mean, it is a bunch of people, but when the decision's made, it's made.
You know, I think, Brett, not only does he make decisions, when I say quickly, I don't mean without thought. I mean, if we're sitting in the room, the two of us together, you may not be a member of the administration, but he's got great respect for you, so he'll ask you your opinion, as you know. And he might ask me my opinion, and he'll make a decision. And it's possible it's not the perfect decision, but he doesn't stumble because of that. Then he goes on to make another decision that's going to be the perfect decision. My point is, he knows that sometimes we're not going to get it perfectly, but he just keeps on knocking at the door, and invariably he gets it right. So it's pretty remarkable for me to watch.
And world leaders, how do they look at him?
They're blown away. Blown away. In the Arab world, there's huge respect for him. You know, people respect power there. They respect fortitude. They respect people keeping their word, like not coming in and out. That's who he is. I think Vladimir Putin completely respects him. I think this trip that he made to the Southeast Asia shows you that Xi respects him. And they respect the fact that he'll do things to enforce America First policies. They can't circumvent us anymore. I think they all respect us.
And if you, in these decisions where you're making these peace deals, what do you take away from that negotiation and how to get it across the finish line? When you're in the heat of the battle, going down to the nitty-gritty, what's the best trick to be able to get there?
Well, you know, Jared and I, in the last several days of the Gaza negotiation, we both had there was no space between us on what we needed to do. You can't make a good deal unless it's good for each side. And even if someone signs a bad deal, he'll be intent on breaking the bad deal. So it was our job to find how both sides could digest and sell to their constituencies the deal that we were trying to make there. We had, I say it all the time, we had to convince Hamas that those hostages were no longer an asset for them. Those hostages had become a liability. And I think as we became successful in them appreciating that, that was the inflection point that led to the deal. And I think the same thing is going to happen at some point in Russia-Ukraine. That that both sides will get to a place where they understand that solving that conflict kinetically is bad for them long term, either of them, that it should be solved diplomatically. And then they can both grow their countries.
So as you're sitting at that table, you're trying to get something that they both agree on. You're trying to take the conversation. I mean, it can be pretty awkward.
Yeah, yeah. And give them examples of examples we give them historical context about why to do things like that. Why compromise at this moment might be the smart thing to do. Why someone being the bigger man might be a great example. Here's a small example of what I mean. When we did this whole deal at the president's direction with Azerbaijan and Armenia. These countries had been fighting for close to 40 years. And President Aliyev came in. His father was the former president, and he's got the much superior army. He took his moment to take back some land from Armenia. And we were sitting in the Oval Office, and the president asked the President Aliyev, while the president of Armenia was there, why did you stop? Like, you had them on the run. You've got the bigger military. What made you stop? And he said, because that's all I wanted back, was what they took. I didn't need more. And it was an amazing decision on his part to do that, Brad. He felt that going any further would hurt him internationally. It was an example of statesmanship. And I think that those are wonderful examples for conflicts out there where leaders should understand that they do better if they resolve things diplomatically, peacefully, with less loss of life than kinetically, and show everybody how big and tough their army is.
You've been in the room for a lot of this, but there's been Armenia, Azerbaijan, Congo, Rwanda, India, Pakistan, Israel, Hamas, and this Gaza deal. Mm-hmm. There are others that the president is figuring out how those sides deal with each other.
Yes.
What's the secret sauce? Are they all different?
Well, they all have different circumstances. Yeah, they do. But, today we saw an offer for a ceasefire and big aid coming into Sudan from one of the groups that's fighting there. That's at the president's urging. That's something, by the way, that nobody knows about. That's hot off the press.
Okay.
So,
breaking news.
And I think that's an example of a conflict where the president is urging it to stop and people are paying attention and listening. Now, I don't know if in the past our prior foreign policy teams did all of these things. He wants it all solved. That's who he is. And we then go out there and we want to get it done for him and for the American people.
When he was campaigning, he was not, peacemaker in chief, but he has kind of taken that title in how he's negotiated.
Yeah. I think it's, first of all, I think he's always been a great human being. He just doesn't get the credit for it, and he should. And I talk about it all the time. He should. And I don't mean with a Nobel Peace Prize. Certainly, he got cheated out of the Nobel Peace Prize this year. That's for sure. But there could be no doubt. I don't even know how you would. The woman who got it actually said, "I should give it to you, sir." But forgetting about the Peace Prize, he is a good, decent man. He doesn't need to do this job. He's wealthy, he could get a big boat, travel in the Mediterranean in the summer, go to St. Bart's in the winter. Instead, he goes to his office every day and figures out how he can do better. I think that's quite remarkable. And it makes me really proud to work for him.
How long do you think you could keep this pace up, though? This job that you are right now, I've seen you on the phone, I've seen you get on planes, get off planes, travel around the world. Keep it going for how long?
Personally?
Yeah.
As long as he would want me to.
You like it that much?
Well, I'm not sure that would make my girlfriend happy, who's in the audience. By the way, it was her birthday yesterday, so I say happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Lauren.
But yeah, I don't know that I've ever felt this fulfilled in my life. I feel really fulfilled that I get to do this job. It's an extraordinary experience. And you and I have talked about this. Maybe one day you're going to want to do something like this, Brad.
I don't know. You can take the baton. It is passion, though, right? And would you say that when you find the passion, it makes a difference?
Well, you know, I get these calls from people who say, you made my life just a little bit better. And then I go into the Oval and I watch some of these hostages come out and tell the president what it was like for them. I remember when we got Mark Fogel home. He was in Russia. He was in Russia. Came in a snowstorm. Called his 93-year-old mom from the plane, elated. She had no idea. And then the president spent 2 hours with him at 1 o'clock in the morning, showing him the Lincoln Room, talking to him about his experiences. He turned to me, he said to me, I didn't know I had a president like this. I didn't know that I had a government that cared about me this much. And you watch that, and you want to be a part of it.
So that's what you're striving for, another one of those, another breakthrough.
Well, no, I don't mean, I think we're striving to complete whatever President Trump tells us the mission is. We're trying to complete that. And I think when we can't get it done on his schedule, I think we all feel that we failed a little bit. And then he keeps on propping us up and saying to us, go on, get out there, go do it. He's an inspirational guy.
Last thing, taking it back to the beginning, as you look at your business life and you look at this life, you said you'd give it all up to see those images of hostages coming home to their families. What's the next chapter for you?
Well, I'm never going to go back to business the way I did. First of all, it was time for me anyway. I've got very capable kids. They're bright, super well educated. They're very, very close. And so that's for them to do now. They can watch after me a little bit.
Bueno, pues dejamos de escuchar al enviado especial de los Estados Unidos a Oriente Medio, a Witkoff, en ese evento, para volver a centrarnos en la rueda de prensa, la comparecencia del presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, que ha sido interrumpida por un mareo, pero eso sí, ya ha vuelto el presidente a hablar al despacho Oval. Vamos a escucharlo.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I was saying it's an honor to be here because this action today will really begin to change the arc of chronic disease in our country. Lilly's a 150-year-old American company, and we're committed to advancing science, investing in research, and building really high-value jobs. But today, I want to start by thanking the many Lilly scientists who pioneered breakthroughs like the ones we're talking about today, breakthroughs like tirzepatide or Zepbound. And also our manufacturing people who work around the clock to make supply possible for this kind of landmark announcement. But medicine only is effective when people can access and afford it. And that's what today's announcement delivers. Thanks to the President's focus and the collaboration we had with so many people at HHS, we're able to solve a real problem for millions of American people. 9 years ago, when I started this job, I promised to read every letter a patient sent me. And back then, there was hope for new treatments, but a lot of complaints about insulin pricing. So while we did a number of things ourselves, it wasn't actually until I spoke to the President, this is in your first term, and you ordered the HHS team to work with us to really solve that problem. We prioritized it. We launched a copy of our own medicine at 90% off. And then we capped the price of insulin for Medicare patients at $35.
And Biden tried to take credit for it.
Yeah, it was in your first term.
It was crazy. Yeah. We did it, and then it came through during the early part of his term, and he tried to take credit. So we did the best we could to let him know that didn't happen. He got a little lucky, but I always said, frankly, I said, this is not good because statutorily it had to wait a little while. And it came out at $35 instead of some crazy amount right to have it. And they stood up and they said what a great job they did. No, that was done by Trump and Lilly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we solved a major problem together. It's now law. Today when I get mail, it's quite frequently from patients who are just having amazing success on our weight loss medications, but they too are finding it out of reach, particularly America's seniors in Medicare. So this spring in this very office, I met with the President and Secretary Kennedy, Administrator Oz, and others to figure out how to tackle this problem. And of course, unlocking our medicine cut progression from pre-diabetes to type 2 diabetes by 94% after 3 years in major studies. And many studies have shown the benefits that Dr. Oz spoke about with cardiovascular risk reduction. This agreement also accelerates approval of a new treatment that are easier to take and highly effective, like our once daily oral pill or Forglipron. And we have other treatments in development, and those will be included along with other manufacturers' latest treatments when they become available. So as drug coverage expands, so does choice, and data shows that medicines work differently for different people. Some are better for some, weight loss and weight maintenance, and we really believe that doctors and patients should choose the best option. So it's important that this deal includes both of the leading innovators and manufacturers of this transformational new class of medicines. Medicare coverage is a milestone, but it's probably only the beginning. We call on states, on employers, on commercial insurers, even PBMs, to join and expand coverage at affordable prices for all Americans. And Lilly stands ready to partner across the healthcare system to make that happen. Just as we've achieved this partnership with Chris and Inma and John, who helped us from CMS to make this day possible. And we're anxious to get started with this as early as April 1. This coverage can begin for our medicines and Novo's medicines. And I just want to say it's hard to overstate the impact of this day. It's really a turning point in the fight against chronic disease and a landmark achievement for President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, as well as, of course, our company. But most importantly, it empowers people to take control of their own health, to eat well, to exercise, of course, avoid harmful substances, and where appropriate, in consultation with your doctor, access affordable now obesity medications that are really a breakthrough. And we believe that when America is healthy, America is strong. And at Lilly, our goal is the same here, to invest in science, invest in our country, deliver breakthrough medicines, and reduce and then prevent chronic disease, all to make our country strong for generations to come. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And I'll introduce Mike, my colleague.
Thank you so much. And before we, is Tom Emmer, we have one of our great leaders here. Is he in the room? Yeah. Where is he? Oh, hello, Tom. I was going to invite you up. How about Mrs. Emmer joining us, okay? The real boss. Come on. The real boss is Emmer. Come on up. Come on up. She's the real boss, right? There she is. Okay, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, Secretary Kennedy, Administrator Oz, FDA Commissioner, Dr. McCurry, and the whole team. I'd like to especially thank Chris Klump and Imna Hernandez for your hard work. I also like to thank my own team, Dave Moore and Karsten Knudsen, for their tenacity in getting us here today. It's an honor also to be with you, Dave. Dave and I compete on a daily basis, quite hard, I would say, but because of you and because of this process and the administration, we are standing here hand in hand as friends to have a common cause. And the cause is to really provide access to many millions of patients that yesterday did not have it. So I'm very happy to be here on this today, on today's pivotal moment. At Novo Nordisk, we believe that access to life-changing medicine should not be a privilege. It is a societal promise, and that promise today is becoming one step closer to a hope, to a reality, when we are very, very happy about it in our company. We are here because semaglutide is a unique molecule. Ozempic and Wegovy are unique medicines. I cannot remember any other time during at least my lifetime that another medicine has gotten as much attention and as much honor in the world scientific circle and has become a household name. It is very, very important that we're making this deal today. We're able to stand here with you, President, and your team to ensure broad, affordable access for all American patients and that is truly exciting. It means not only providing hope, but also providing unique medicines to help Americans live healthier lives and longer lives. Novo Nordisk is proud to be an American success story. As a leader in manufacturing, research, and creating a lot of jobs. Currently, we have already invested $24 billion over the last 10 years here, and these investments have created more than 10,000 jobs. And they have generated $21 billion of GDP just in 2024 alone. And today, as I'm standing here talking, cranes are up, as you would like to say, in North Carolina, because we're just expanding our North Carolina manufacturing site once again with $4 billion additional US. In some strange way, you could say, even though we have a Danish heritage, we have been more American and been here for a long time and proud American than many other companies that were born here. And we are very proud of that. In fact, we are proud to say that our approval of Wegovy pill will be the only GLP-1 that will be manufactured end-to-end here in America by Americans and for Americans. This agreement reflects a shared belief that the administration has provided a safe and effective, innovative medicines accessible to many patients. And because we know different patients have different needs, we are very excited to have our semaglutide 7.2 milligram, the higher dose, now, as we call it, Wegovy Plus, available as part of the receiving priority voucher. We stand here to ensure that all Americans who need Ozempic or Wegovy can access the affordable medication, so they don't need to go and get an unapproved compounded knockoffs version of it. Once again, I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to you, Mr. President, and to the whole administration for making America great again and allowing affordable access to many millions of patients living with diabetes and obesity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else? Just say a couple of words, Marty, please.
Right, thank you, Mr. President. This is an amazing day because people talk about different ways to finance the broken healthcare system. This is fixing the broken healthcare system by dealing with two root causes: the price of goods and services, something hardly anyone talks about, and the health of the population. So today the FDA is announcing, as part of its new national priority voucher program, that both Lilly and Novo Nordisk will be receiving a voucher for a priority review, because they're doing something in this administration's national priority interest, lowering the price of drugs to make them affordable, in line with the president's mission, and domestic manufacturing, and addressing a public health need. These are 2 of 6 products that we are announcing today. Treatments for cancer that are unbelievable. They are incredibly promising. A rectal cancer treatment that has melted away tumors with no need for surgery or chemo or radiation. We're interested in therapies that reduce downstream healthcare utilization. They'll be getting a voucher for a review by the FDA in weeks instead of a year. So we're serious. We're doing everything we can to incentivize this. So I think this is not appreciated enough, because the fastest area of healthcare spending growth is drug price spending growth. And so we're seeing a lowering healthcare drug prices as a vehicle to make insurance more affordable, private insurance, Medicaid more affordable, Medicare more affordable, and health care in general more affordable. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Marty, very much. Any questions? Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you were able to get this deal done and so many others because of tariffs. Yesterday at the Supreme Court, the case being heard, the justices expressed some skepticism. What is your plan if they end up making a decision that's not in your favor?
Well, I'd rather discuss that later. I hope we're going to win that case. I think it's one of the most important cases in the history of our country. So much evolves around tariffs as a defensive mechanism for our country. as national security for our country. So I don't want to really discuss a ground truth. This is so important. If you look at China, and I covered this yesterday, but if you look at China, by putting a large 100% tariff over and above the tariffs they already paid, they came to the table, they talked, we made a wonderful deal for everybody. Our farmers, as you know, with the soybeans at levels that nobody's ever seen before, we were able to make phenomenal deals. If we didn't have the tariffs, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So we thought we did very well yesterday. We hope that we did. I think it would be devastating for our country, but I also think that we'll have to develop a Game 2 plan. We'll see what happens. Most people tell me we did very well legally.
Mr. President, related to that, are you moving forward with any new tariff announcements before a decision from the Supreme Court?
This is the best one, and we can do other things, but they're slow by comparison. You know, like as an example, with the 100%, I was able to do it instantaneously when we were threatened by the rare earths, as you know, the magnets. And I did it instantaneously. It was a matter of seconds. And it was a matter of seconds that I got a phone call, let's work this out. We would have had not nearly the defense that we had. It would be a shame. It would be somewhat catastrophic for our country, I have to be honest with you. I don't want to get too much involved, but what we've done, you know, we're taking in hundreds of trillions of dollars. If you take a look at the numbers we're at $17 trillion right now. We're going to be at $21 trillion, about $21 trillion by the time I've finished my first year. Biden, as an example, the Biden administration was at less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We're going to be at $21 trillion for 1 year. In the history of the world, there's never been a country that's done that. Not China, not the U.S., not anybody. And a lot of that is because of the tariffs and the fact that the president is a competent president that knows how to use them. And I use them for national defense. I ended, of the 8 wars I ended, I would say 5 or 6 were ended because of tariffs. I'll give you an example. If you take a look at India and Pakistan, they started to fight. They're 2 nuclear nations. They were shooting each other. 8 planes were shot down. There was 7, now it was 8, because the one that was sort of shot down is now abandoned. And 8 planes were shot down. And I said, listen, if you guys are going to fight, I'm going to put tariffs on you. And they both went, you know, they were not happy about that. And within 24 hours, I settled the war. If I didn't have tariffs, I wouldn't have been able to settle that war. So it's great national defense, and you have to be quick moving. You can't wait around for months and months while you're doing studies and you're doing all of this, or go back to Congress. Look at Congress. We can't even get a continuation from Congress. Think of that. How do you have to go back to Congress? You have to do the spur of the moment. Because just so you understand, we're hit spur of the moment. You know, other countries have used tariffs that absolutely, they would have destroyed us. If I didn't come along, our country would be destroyed right now. The tariffs have made us rich in terms of national security. They've made us secure. And you know, if you have economic strength, that's also, if you have a lack of economic strength, that's national security also. But we have great national security because of those tariffs. So I think it would be devastating if we lost that ruling.
But before the Supreme Court issues a ruling, it could be several weeks. Are you going to lay out any new additional tariffs before? I don't want to talk about
it. I'm going to hope that we win. I can't imagine that anybody would do that kind of devastation to our country. You know, we'd have to pay back trillions of dollars. We've taken in trillions. We haven't taken in billions. We've taken in trillions of dollars. We've made trade deals based on that give us, as an example, European Union, $950 billion. Japan, $650 billion. South Korea, $350 billion. Without this, we're not talking about that kind of money.